Hello, my name is Michael Connor, and today I will be talking about the Great Emu War. Now, this war, as you'll find out in this presentation, was a war between Australians and emus. So, what was the context behind the Great War? Well, it started on November 2nd of 1932 and then very promptly ended on December 10th of 1932. So, as you can see, it barely even lasted a month. So, kind of makes you wonder what could have taken place to make this war so short. It took place in West Australia, as you can see over here on the map, over in the Campion and Perth regions mainly. Some more important information that led into why the Great War was started. The Great Depression in 1929 made the price of wheat plummet, making big losses for farmers. And some more important information is that veterans from the Australian military were granted land for farming to live off of after they left the military. Now, what is an emu? It's important to know what the Australians were going against in this war, so there's some information here. There's a chart over here that compares bones that are shared between humans and emus. They are large flightless birds. They have a very thick coat of feathers and strong legs. They can run all the way up to 31 miles per hour, and they're around 5.7 feet tall on average. They're predators towards smaller mammals, but they also eat crops. So, while they don't pose a direct threat towards humans, they do eat crops, which, as you can imagine, farmers aren't a fan of. So, why was the war started? So, the emus migrated from the more eastern regions of Australia to the west of Australia, where there was more plentiful harvests, because they wanted to get as much food as they could. So the emus would eat the crops all the way down to the stub, making the crop essentially useless to the farmers. So these ex-military farmers, obviously they had training with rifles, so they started shooting at emus. But as you'll find out, emus are pretty resistant to bullets, so the veterans soon turned to the government for help. The government decided it was necessary to declare war against the emus. So, what were both sides of this war working with, really? So, the emu population we know was somewhere around 20,000 emus, which is a lot of emus if you really think about it. And the Australian military, they had 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of 303 caliber rounds, and they were led by Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery. So, the war in progress, the Australians, they weren't having that much luck with attacking these emus. And that is, well, because of their speed and thick coat. So, despite their advanced military tactics, the emus actually had their own tactics, which obviously we don't know if emus were communicating with each other or if it's just running wild, but they would run too fast for bullets to reliably hit them. And if they did get hit, they would not take that. They would be able to sustain a decent amount of damage. So, coming out of this, who won the war? Now, you might automatically think, well, humans, they're the most intelligent life forms on Earth. Of course, they would win, right? Well, the Australian government eventually gave up on trying to fight the emus, and this is because the tactics and their thick feather coat would make it up to 10 rounds required to kill one emu. And if we think back to previous slide, they only had 10,000 rounds to work with against 20,000 emus. So you're not going to be able to take out the majority of these emus, and you're going to be wasting most of your ammunition because you're not even going to be landing all of your shots. So they decided it was too much of a net loss, and they just stopped pursuing the matter. And so emus were considered the victors of the Great War. And so, as a result of the war, the emu population was reduced by 986, which is not a lot compared to 20,000. Most of the emus managed to get out of there unscathed. Many bullets were fired. I believe it was most of their ammunition before they finally decided to throw in the towel. But farmers were given some countermeasures to at least try and reduce the amount of emu crop destruction. So the government issued 303 caliber rounds to the farmers, and they built exclusion barrier fences around crops to try and, just stop the emus from getting to the crops in the first place. So I've got a chart here of the total population of the emus in green, and then the amount of emus that were killed in the war, which is around 5% of the population. So, as you can see, they mostly didn't dent the emu issue, which is mostly why why the Australians are considered to have lost the war. Here are some of my sources, and then here are the rest of my sources. Thank you.